I'd now like to call our Arlington City Council work session to order. And our first item is Cross Timbers ECOREGIon, and I would like to call upon Ms. Jennifer Wickman, our Assistant City Manager, to introduce our special guest.
Thank you, Mayor. Several weeks ago at a previous meeting, the council had requested that we look to UTA to see if they could have an expert in the Cross Timbers region who could talk to you all about that that phenomenon and how it affects Arlington. So today I contacted Dr. Jim Grover, who's the Interim Vice President for Research there at UTA. He recommended David Hopman. Professor Hopman is an Associate Professor of Landscape Architecture. He's had both public and private work, and he has a presentation for you all today about the Cross Timbers region and its presence in Arlington. So I'll bring up Professor Hopman.
Okay, it's working. How about that? Well, it's very nice to be here, and I'm very happy to be talking about post oaks and the cross timbers. It's something near and dear to my heart, and it's something that makes Arlington very special. I am an Arlington resident. I live in North Arlington. I live right on the rim of Crystal Canyon, and so I'm very plugged into post oaks. The trees that you're going to see in this presentation are all in my neighborhood, and when I found out I was going to be speaking here last month, I kind of wandered around my neighborhood and took some pictures. This is one of my favorite post oaks from our neighborhood. This is the Riverbend neighborhood on the east side of Crystal Canyon. So there's three things I'm going to talk about briefly, and then I'm happy to answer questions. I'm not sure exactly what the council is interested in focusing on. So the presentation, these 1 and 2 are actually backwards. First one's going to be post oaks in Arlington's unique natural areas. The second thing I'm going to talk about is post oaks in residential and commercial areas. The third is a little bit about research and education that is needed. And the fourth is encouraging development that respects post oaks. I was on the ATAC, the Arlington Tree Advisory Council, and so I'm a little bit familiar with the regulations, and that's something that needs to be ongoing. I did not focus on the environmental benefits of post oaks because the council's gotten a lot of information on that. You have that urban forest report and there's benefits of urban trees. This is right from the Arlington website, and so there are very good resources if you're interested in finding out specific environmental services for post oaks. I'm excited about them because it's an opportunity for the city to have one more element that makes it a little bit unique about being a city in a forest. Fort Worth was pre-settlement was a prairie. Dallas pre-settlement was a prairie. Arlington pre-settlement was a woodland. And so we are the last upland deciduous hardwood forest between here and California, but we're slowly losing our post oak canopy. So to me, it's a missed opportunity to give Arlington some real natural character. So post oaks, they define the Arlington cross timbers ecosystem. Obviously, I think they're beautiful. They're extremely drought tolerant, also fire tolerant. Unfortunately, they do respond negatively to disturbance, and they're difficult to plant and to propagate, and those are things that require research. We need to learn to meet the post oaks kind of halfway. They're not like some trees that just thrive in urban conditions, but it's not impossible to have them in urban conditions either. But it's going to take research to figure out how to keep them alive and also to start planting some small ones, because we don't have any small ones in Arlington. You can go around the neighborhoods, you'll never see a small post oak unless it's in a natural area. So first of all, preserving and protecting them in our unique natural areas. So there we are. Here's the ecosystem that we're in. This is fun. I better not. I'll take all day if I get too excited with this. But everything east of us was prairie. Everything west of us was prairie or savanna, and then there's just a small little band where it was woodland, and we happen to be the biggest city in North Texas that's actually right in that band. So we have this unique ecosystem, again, that gives a chance to provide all the environmental services, but also to give Arlington a unique character. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. This is what it would have looked like if you were migrating westward. It was a natural barrier to westward expansion. We don't have a whole lot of geological features. We don't have mountains. We don't have very obvious rivers. I mean, we have rivers, but they're not, big dominant features on the landscape like they would be in Philadelphia or something. So the settlers were going along for weeks sometimes, just seeing prairie, and all of a sudden they saw this band of woods. So it was a very dramatic feature on the landscape, and of course it did provide a lot of wood for building and for firewood. This is Crystal Canyon just last month. So this is like just a little snapshot of what this area would have looked like. Crystal Canyon is actually a draw. It's actually a big eroded area that's coming down from the highest part of Arlington down to the Trinity River. That kind of forms that valley. It's all just been eroded out over millions of years. And this is what the understory of Crystal Canyon and what the wonderful natural areas we have in Arlington is really supposed to look like. It's supposed to be fairly open. It was traditionally, Indians maintained it that way. They used to burn it so that they could hunt in there, comfortably, and so the game would come in and feed. And so for many, many hundreds of years, this was kind of the character of what the post oaks look like. The post oak natural areas. Unfortunately, this is what a lot of it looks like now. And if we're going to keep our natural areas going, we have to figure out some way to scale the removal of this one plant, Chinese privet, Ligustrum kiwi. It really is devastating, and it's also dangerous. We have this idea, CPTED, it's crime prevention through environmental design. And anytime you have opaque plants like this in a public place, it's an opportunity for mischief, right? So right now we have lots of volunteers trying to beat these things back, but it's going to take some research. We have to figure out a way to scale it over the whole city. If we can eliminate most of this, it's not going to come back as quickly, because you can see all those berries on there, right? I mean, they're just being spread by birds. And just look at all those berries on the left. That's a ligustrum. That was just last month in Crystal Canyon. And then on the right there, you can see nandinas are starting to encroach too. So the post oaks can somewhat take care of themselves, but they cannot compete against this exotic, this invader that is very, very aggressive. And it seems to be just as well adapted to our area as the post oaks are, unfortunately. I thought with some of the droughts, like in 2011, that it would make a difference, but it didn't. So we've tried a couple of things to improve the ground plane in Crystal Canyon. The city, with my help, sort of leading the charge, we did some compost seeding, and it actually worked very well. Again, that's something that can scale. It's 25 cents a square foot. You spray it in with this giant hose. And there you can see on the left, that was the compost seeding sprayed on top of mulch. This is right after Crystal Canyon was built. And then on the right, that's actually not the most flattering pose, but that's my wife. But that's what Crystal Canyon looked like about 9 months later, and that's with no water, no fertilizer, no nothing. But it still has to be maintained, and this was not maintained properly, unfortunately. It has to have maybe one key mowing a year, where it's mowed and shredded. Otherwise, the plants kind of smother themselves, So natural areas require maintenance. They require very little maintenance, but they require very intelligent maintenance. And that's what it looks like now. All that stuff is gone because it wasn't maintained properly. So again, it's a maintenance issue. Most of our city is either commercial or residential, and so we can't just think about our natural areas. We have to think about them too, right? Otherwise, the character of the city as a post oak city is going to go away. So here's. Sorry, I'm trying to click through these quickly, but it doesn't want to click. This way, maybe? There we go. So, things like putting in retaining walls in residential areas kills post oaks. This is education, and there's, that probably needs to be a task force of one of either the Parks Department, or it could be a separate task force, but how do we educate people to not do this kind of thing? There were two very healthy post oaks here. This is actually in my neighborhood. somebody built this little retaining wall, and one of them already died, and the other one is on the way out. So it was very predictable, and the retaining wall was not necessary. So you can see just all these little interventions that people do in their yards. They can either kill a post oak outright or set it back. Post oaks take a long time to die. They grow slowly, they live a long time, but they also take a long time to die. So somebody will do something like this, and maybe the tree will live another 5 or 10 years, but then it goes away. So that's very important. And not, putting as little impermeable paving as possible is another thing if we want to preserve our post oaks. Obviously, we have to have driveways, but if we have walkways, I'll show you an example of a post oak friendly walkway in a minute. Even lawns, lawns are okay. You can see there's a nice grove of post oaks right there. It's kind of on an upland area. It's getting really good drainage. So even though it's being watered, the soil is not staying wet, and the post oaks are happy. This is another issue, is people don't know what to do once the grass gets shaded out. Actually, shade is a great thing, right? So it comes back to education, and it comes back to research. This is something that I've actually been working on for a long time, working on the what to put underneath post oaks. Here's another example. This is Randall Mill Park. You can see over here where the soil has eroded away from the concrete slabs. So we can't leave Bermuda grass there because it's too shady. What do we put down there instead? Those are issues that have to be addressed. And then how do we plant new post oaks? We can't just never plant them. The Parks Department has had trouble planting them, and I understand they are difficult to plant. But again, that's an area where there probably needs to be some research, some experimentation. Maybe they need to be planted on little berms. Maybe they should be planted from seed. The seed in the post oaks does not need to be scarified. It doesn't have to stay outside in the cold. It doesn't have to go through an animal. You can take it off the tree, stick it in the ground, the tree will grow. So maybe that's the way to do it, as opposed to trying to do it. You can see they have these weird-looking pots because the post oak has a taproot when it first grows. And I did show one example right here of a little post oak at Crystal Canyon, because you'll never see one in a residential neighborhood. Just very briefly, this is my house. Very happy to be here. It's in North Arlington. That's my backyard. I look right out over Crystal Canyon. I mean, it's spectacular. That whole neighborhood, those houses sell like hotcakes. I had to buy mine through a private sale. People really like living next to these beautiful natural areas. It's almost like a conservation subdivision. So this is some of the things I'm doing in my front yard. I'm experimenting with what I call, this is a long term, aesthetically qualified native urban polycultures, which I could talk about for hours, but I won't. So it's basically a mix of low, kind of non-threatening native plants that would be growing native under post oaks, but they're very carefully calibrated for urban conditions. And you notice that I have a walkway there, but it's permeable walkway, so it's not affecting the roots or the drainage or anything like that. And I'll just click through these real quickly, but this is my polyculture in my front yard. And you can see through the months. There's April, and these plants. We can talk about this more if you want, but I want to make sure that you have plenty of time for discussion. These are all native plants, very low maintenance. The only thing I do to this, I mow it once a year. And this is April 19th of this year. This is the Phlox pilosa blooming like crazy. So it's fun, it's interesting, it's environmentally friendly, it's low maintenance, and it's all native plants, and it's post oak friendly. So how can we get that kind of information out into businesses and out into homeowners so that they don't just put lawn everywhere because they don't know what else to do? And it likes shade, whereas lawns don't like shade. This is what it looks like in the summer after you've mowed it once. You mow it July 1st, and it looks like this basically until frost. So research and education is a really important thing. Again, there are all these questions that come up. How do we meet these post oaks halfway? How do we encourage development in the city, but we still try to maintain the character of the city as a cross timbers ecoregion? And this is sort of a plug for me, but if you're interested in finding out about the native polycultures, if you just Google Hopman PPN, I've got articles, lots of articles on the National ASLA website that will explain all the rationale and thinking about how these things are created and what they look like, and how they're designed and all that kind of stuff. So we need best practices for roads, for driveways, for walkways, all the hardscape surfaces. We talked about how you propagate small trees. We don't really know how to do that in an urban condition. At least that's what I've been told. School programs are important. I know we're doing a lot of that already. School programs about invasive species. School programs about how to protect and value post oaks. That some of these values have to be taught. They're not necessarily inherent. And then encouraging development that respects the post oaks. As I mentioned, I was in the Arlington Tree Advisory Council, and this seems like a very picky thing, but we do have some good regulations. I just got this off the website. I assume it's current, unless something's changed in the last couple of weeks. But you can see that here with live oak, for example, you get bonus points for as a native plant, and yet if you look on the Biota of North America website, you can see that there are no native live oaks in Tarrant County, or really any of the counties around us. That one outlier is at the LBJ National Grasslands, because they have 1,200 stock tanks, and the live oaks are growing around the stock tanks. So, so if we really want to value our post oaks, even though live oaks are great trees, we should, in my opinion, we should treat them a little bit differently. They should somehow receive a higher value. They're harder to transplant. They grow slower, than a live oak should. And my only point in showing this is that even though this is very good, it just needs to continually be refined and updated to make sure that it meets the goals that the council has for the post oak canopy of Arlington. That would be my only point. So you can see here that Arlington is actually on the western edge of a giant swarm of counties that have post oaks. So it looks like post oaks are very common all over the United States. However, that little red area there, and I'm sorry it's right on the crack, but that is the only place where there's actually cross timbers. That's the only place where the post oaks are the dominant canopy species in the whole United States. The rest of the time, they're just either scattered around in savanna, where you have a post oak and a lot of grassland, or they're actually mixed in with other hardwoods. So it's just this little bit of Texas and Oklahoma that has these actual cross timbers ecosystem. So that's kind of a brief overview of a number of different things that and if the council wants to focus on any one of those in particular, I'd be happy to discuss or answer any questions.
Ms. Capehart?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Hopman. That I looked at your presentation in our packet, and I was very impressed, and I learned a great deal. I was particularly interested when we first started talking about this as a council. I had heard so much over the years about cross timbers forest, and every zoning case that comes forward, it's okay, how many trees are there, what kind of trees they are, and so I was really trying to educate myself, and I know Dr. Ignacio already knew quite a bit as well about, okay, where is the cross timbers forest, and what does that really mean, and how many of the, quote, cross timber forests that it reside in Arlington is left. So, and it's just a guess on your part, and I realize that.
I think the best place to look for that, and I'm punting on this a little bit, but is that U4, because and also DJ Schoenweiss over the last 4 or 5 years ago, the park. I'm not sure if it was the Parks Department, but they did a very extensive inventory of the Arlington
cross timber,
all the trees in Arlington, and they
okay.
just went actually block by block, and so that's the best place to get that data, or those data. I know that the most common tree in Arlington right now is cedar elms. It's about 30% of the canopy. And,
really?
and if you just walking around my neighborhood, the cedar elms are all sick. They're all full of mistletoe. Cedar elms are a bottomland tree. They want to be in a wet area near a stream. Post oaks are an upland tree. They want to be in a high and dry area, which we have a lot in Arlington. So that's part of the thinking also is what is a bottomland, what is an upland, and it's a little bit different than thinking about just shade or just what something looks like. We think about how the land lays and how the water's flowing underground and all that kind of thing.
So there are certain neighborhoods, particularly where you live is one example.
Yeah.
Wimbledon down in the southwest is another example. And I have several neighborhoods in District 2 that have native post oaks. But they're not recent developments. They were developments from the 70s or the 80s.
Yeah, those post oaks are almost all pre-development.
Yes.
Because they're maybe hundreds of years old or 100 years old or
Right.
more.
But my point is, many of them, and I can't say all, but many of them have survived. And yet, in today's environment, when we have development coming through and we ask them to save the post oaks or can you work around them, it's, well, we can, but any disturbance, to your point, is going to kill them anyway. So my question is, why did they survive in the 70s or the 80s when development occurred? But now I'm hearing they don't survive even if you try to work around.
No, that's a very good question. And post oaks are notorious for being finicky about development, about irrigation, about all kinds of things. And yet I can show you, for example, on Cole Street in Dallas, where they built a apartment complex and they paved asphalt right up to the trunk of the post oaks. And the post oaks are perfectly happy. So, trees are, they're kind of unpredictable. So I think what you're seeing in older neighborhoods is you're seeing maybe 50% of the canopy is gone, maybe the density of the trees, and the trees that have managed to survive have gotten bigger and kind of filled in. So that's what you haven't seen, is that a lot of those trees, I'm sure, did succumb when development went in, but some of them didn't.
Okay, so, from pictures I've seen from people who've lived in Wimbledon since it was built, there have been some that have died, but it's not even 50% that have.
Yeah, I don't know what the percentage is.
And I know you don't. I know, but
yeah.
my question of you, because you're the expert on post oaks, is what can we as a city do because development has to occur, and we all agree development has to occur. But what can we do with regard to development standards that help preserve the post oaks? Because I'm very interested in the fact that we have this kind of little swath where things around us were prairie, particularly our neighboring city to the east, whose name is Grand Prairie. So it's kind of like, what can we do? Because this is a unique asset to your description that's pretty much only for us. And so I'm really interested in knowing what can we do to help development go forward as they need to, but do something that ensures survivability of the post oaks to the best of our ability.
That's a great question, and I think it's worthy. Again, I think it's worthy of a report or a focused activity. I mean, I can tell you all the rules. I mean, you're supposed to not encroach on the tree zone within 12 inches in diameter for every inch caliper of the tree. You can put root ventilation systems. You can put permeable paving. I mean, there's all these different techniques that can be used. But I can't tell you, do this, and this, and the tree will survive. We give the tree a better chance of survival by using best practices, and we know the best practices. Sometimes, you have extreme things you have to do, like you say, okay, I can't get within 25 feet of the trunk of this tree, or I'm going to impinge the tree, but I have to put a driveway in. Well, you can, for example, you can create a root ventilation system. You can put gravel down, put perforated pipe on top of it, put the concrete slab on top of that, and it won't affect the tree roots because they get oxygen. So there are lots of techniques, but how that would interface with development, that's a very complicated, there's no easy answer for that. We know what the solutions are, but we don't necessarily know what's acceptable, what's cost prohibitive. I think all of that needs some study.
Okay, I agree. And then thirdly, you made a comment about in Dallas they had laid asphalt right. So is asphalt better, or does it really
No.
matter?
No, my point was that
They were just finicky and they didn't react to
sometimes
the
you
asphalt.
just look at a post oak cross-eyed and it dies, and sometimes you do something absolutely horrific and it survives.
It survives,
Yeah,
okay.
but you're just trying to tilt the balance. But
Gotcha.
it's not just a matter of getting to survive, it's also how are we going to get some new ones? We're not getting any new ones.
I have plenty coming up in my yard, so.
Well, it's,
But that's okay. I'd be glad to.
but that's really the exception, because I walk around my neighborhood every single
Yeah.
day, and I've never
They
seen a
come
small
get all
post
your
oak in my
money.
neighborhood, never.
Really?
Yeah, and people, they mow everything, and if one comes up, it gets mowed down.
Well, and that's the difference from, I'm on 2 wooded acres and grass can't grow, so.
Yeah.
It's just the
Yeah, our
natural
lots tend to be,
environment, so-
my lot is only
okay.
5,200 square feet,
But
but then I
thank
have.
you. I appreciate all the information. This is very helpful
Yeah.
to me personally, and I hope to the council as well, because I think we do have a unique asset that we need to kind of go back and reassess what more can we do
Yeah.
to encourage the survivability.
And it's going to be a continuing thing, it's not
Got
going to be, there will never be a solution, because, as Arlington densifies, that's going to be a whole different set of issues,
Understand. But thank you so much. You're very helpful.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Nunez?
Sir, to your knowledge, are there any tree nurseries in the area that are trying to grow post oaks?
I found some online, but when I moved here 30 years ago, when I bought my first house in 1986, you could go to Wolf Nursery and you could buy a post oak. They were selling them, but they grow slowly. They're a little bit hard to transplant, and slowly they just went away. So yes, there are some nurseries that are growing them. They're not growing them very big, but I don't really know this. This also takes research. It's going to take research. My feeling is that if we really want to get some post oaks going, we really should do it from seed. And how are we going to do that? But you can't. You won't be able to grow like a 2-inch or 3-inch caliber post oak and dig it up and move it.
Well, that was, so a couple of observations. My house backs up to Fielder Park. It's almost 95% post oaks. A lot of acorns all over the ground this
Right.
year. And every time I walk through that park every morning, I go, gosh, I wish I could pick up the acorns and just pretend I'm Johnny Post Oak.
Appleseed. Yeah.
Just call me Johnny Post
But
Oak.
you'd have to figure out a way to make liquor out of them if you were Johnny Appleseed.
Yeah, and so, but I've had a couple neighbors in that area where I live, 76013, that lost some large post oaks,
Yeah,
really large,
yeah.
but they found 10-foot tall post oaks. They're probably about 3-inch diameter post oaks, but they're big old root balls, I mean, huge, that they had to bring in and just put in the ground, and they've survived.
Okay.
But that's why I asked that question. Is
Yeah.
there someone out there growing post oaks
That's a good
that
question.
we don't know about?
Yeah, there probably is, but again, it has to scale, I mean, it's a big city, whatever we do. That's why I put that picture up of a small one. But post oaks they're a little bit unique in trees, and that they produce acorns on all trees. They're so they don't have like a male and a female. And the acorns, they're only on a tree for about 2 weeks a year, and you can pick them right off the tree and stick them in the ground, and they'll grow. And so, if you could collect enough acorns, it could be a school activity, it could be, whatever. I mean, we could designate some places in the city where we want to start some groves, maybe where we have some land that would be, it's always better to have an area the size of this room and have 10 or 15 or 20 trees in it than it is to have a lone tree next to a highway or something like that, as far as the benefit of the tree. But, any plant can also be contract grown. If it's possible to do it, when I was working as a landscape architect, I would specify 50,000, 60,000 plants, and a lot of them were native plants. And I'd say probably half the plants I specified, I had to go to a grower and say, can you have 10,000 of something ready for me in 3 months? And he'd go, sure. So you can do that. You can find a grower. They don't have to be right here. They could be 100 miles from here, or they could be, wherever, fairly close. And say, we want 20,000 1-gallon post oaks. And they could, they'll say, okay, I could have it for you in a year or 6 months or however long it takes. That would be the best way to do that. Because just trying to find one that happens to be somebody's growing on spec is going to be really expensive.
and Sherry, to your some of the comments you've made, it saddens me in Fielder Park. Every spring, I'll start as I walk through the park. I can see some post oaks coming up, but what happens is the mowers come through, and they're gone. And I've thought about putting big old coffee cans around the individual, but I know that they'll run over that too. So it saddens me that I in my memory, my house is backed up to that park now for almost 23 years. We've lost, just at Fielder Park alone, probably about 8 really large, mature post oaks over that time period, and they're not being replaced.
But you know, if you go to like I have a vacation home in Estes Park, Colorado, and the deer eat all the little trees down, and so everybody puts up these little cages around the trees. So maybe we need to come up with some kind of a post oak cage where you put it down and then that becomes sacrosanct. The Parks Department can't run over it. People know that somebody's actually there's something going on there, or you know what I mean. These things are done around the country for other reasons. It's just a matter of us sort of getting with it and thinking that it's worth the time. It is easier and faster to mow with a giant batwing mower, because you can go out 15 feet. There's no coincidence that trees are never closer than 15 feet apart. But maybe they need to use a smaller riding mower. Maybe it's worth it, to do that, and also mow higher. I noticed that when I did a project for Randall Mill Park with my design studio last fall, and I noticed they mowed very, very short. And that's one reason, I think, why there's so much erosion. The mowing needs to be a little bit higher. Because even the native plants, like even something like horse herb, it wants to be 3, 4, 5 inches tall. It doesn't want to be, an inch tall. So that's a maintenance issue. Yeah.
Well, we know that we need to be planting more trees, and it's amazing when you see Arlington, Texas from the air right now, the groves of trees. It is a beautiful city from the air, and Ms. Capehart and Dr. Nunez, of course, their comments are very well taken. And, of course, the basis now is the post oak. So the question is, can we do more post oak, but are other trees, because the benefit of trees are just endless. And we are going to have to look at that. And then I'll just mention one of the biggest success stories of preservation of post oaks was at the River Legacy Living Science Center, in which there was not a single post oak that died after the construction of that. And then you can point to other sites where all efforts were taken and you lost them all. They are amazingly finicky. But Professor, we sure appreciate your research and your time today, and we'll need to continue this discussion and actually some action items here on this, and because this is something all of our citizens need to get involved in.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
If there's anything I can do to help in the future, I'm more than willing to participate in whatever.
Thank you very much.